You're listening to Miller and Moulton, exclusively on the Florida Sports Network.
21 minutes before the hour, Bud Elliott of 24/7 Sports, Cover 3 Podcast, No Cast, and a whole host of things. Kind enough to join us once again. You can follow Bud on Twitter, Bud Elliott3, Bud Elliott3. If you want to email him just about anything or who he likes in Bama, Georgia, budelliottcfb@gmail.com. Bud, a belated Happy New Year. How are you?
Happy New Year, guys. I'm doing well. Excited to talk a little more college football, and we have one game left.
We have one game left, but before Bud, first off, I said it off air, love the 24/7 site, love the transfer portal part of it, but it is now my morning. It is replaced going to the Score app to check NBA and NHL scores. The first thing I do when I get in here every morning is pull up your website and see how many new players have entered the portal. Today it's 22. How many players are in the transfer portal right now?
So 1,500 players from FBS have entered so far.
Come on, tell me, it's messy, but isn't this spectacular? I mean, this could last 2 years. We may look back on this in 20 years and go, man, wasn't that something? That was nuts. Or who knows? Maybe this is how it's going to be till the end of time. But don't you just find this so spectacularly delicious?
I do, and I will say that the schools cause this in part, specifically the level of craziness, and a quick math breakdown. So in order to entice everybody to play college football in the year 2020, which, remember, we had the pandemic. We really didn't understand the pandemic fully at that time. A lot of kids didn't want to play because they might lose a year of eligibility on a season that was only 3 or 4 games. So the NCAA, in its infinite wisdom, and I agree with them at this point, said, hey, if you play this year, you do not lose a year of eligibility for playing in this wacky COVID season. Okay, cool. So basically, you get an extra senior year when it comes time to have your senior year. For 2021, those super seniors or COVID seniors or whatever you want to call them, they did not count against the scholarship cap. Okay, that's great. I think that's actually the right way to do that. However, the schools, particularly a lot of the lower level schools and the schools that don't have a ton of money, they voted to reduce the cap back down to 85 and to have those seniors count against the scholarship cap in this year and all future years. So all of a sudden you have all these kids with extra eligibility, but not space at their current school. So that is, I believe, a significant chunk of what is happening in the portal right now. You have guys who have the extra year of eligibility granted, and the schools are like, well, hey, congrats on the extra year. Can't really take it here, but if you can find some place to redeem that coupon, go right ahead. And so they hit the portal. And I think we have 2 more years of this, quite obviously, because anybody who played in 2020, so 21, 22, 23, 24, I'm interested to see what this thing looks like in 25 and 26 when we don't have all these super seniors on the ledger.
Well, while it's going on, the craziness is just, it's absurd right now. And it seems that we talked about this yesterday, but I don't think there's ever been a time for the middle to bottom of Power 5 conferences to turn around their fate. A school like, when I looked at you have on the 24/7, the top 10 schools that transfer, and USF is number 1 for the moment, but I saw Kansas on there. That's a school to me. There's no high school football players in Kansas. There's no real way for them to be a dominant team, but there's sure as hell a way for them to be competitive quickly in the portal.
There's no doubt about it. Look, you are not going to win a title basing your team, I don't think, on portal players, but you could win a title, or excuse me, you could really improve your lot quite a bit if you hit on enough competent guys, if you have a lot of playing time to sell. I know Michigan State did that this past year, right? Alabama has, I think, 1 transfer starting. I think Georgia has 1 transfer starting. But there are teams, absolutely, USF's taking a ton of transfers. That roster is going to take a long time to flip. Jeff Scott's in that interesting situation where, that first class you signed, probably not going to be very good. We've seen that historically in the early signing period era. And then his next year of recruiting was a COVID year. So that was also quite difficult to evaluate prospects when you couldn't bring anybody onto campus. So obviously they're behind from where they want to be, I believe, from the high school recruiting standpoint. And they're looking to put a Band-Aid on it with some transfers as they try to make it up. And I think their administration realizes how far they have to go, largely due to circumstances outside of the coaching staff's control, and they gave him an extension this past week. So you can definitely improve your lot quite a bit with transfers, unless you're trying to win at that super elite level. For the most part, the guys who are going to the league, most of them don't transfer. I actually categorize transfers in like 7 different categories. I don't know if you guys are interested in hearing those.
Fire away.
All right, let's do it. All right. So number 1 was ran out of drug tests, right?
Okay.
And I'm serious about this.
I know that you are. It doesn't make it any less funny.
100%. So there are kids out there that the school staffs love. The staff doesn't really give a damn if the kid smokes a lot of weed, but some schools have very different testing policies than other schools do.
Right.
And I know of a lot of examples of good players who are in the portal who are not behavioral problems, who ran out of drug tests they can pass at their current school, including one major SEC starter this year who went SEC to SEC. The school was not happy to lose him. They're like, damn it, like the school's making us kick him out because he tested positive too many times. Then we have behavioral or grades issues. Like these are kids who actually probably will be a problem for you. Coaching change casualty. So like last year, all the Tennessee guys went when their coach bolted, way late. The kid who wants to return home, kind of the prodigal son there. The impatient blue chipper, depth chart logjam, which is kind of the same thing. And then, of course, the transfer up, the bigger stage, which is a little thing I'm worried about for our sport overall. We are having a lot of kids jump in from FCS and G5 looking to make, to move up to that bigger stage, which then again, I mean, we talk about which coach from the MAC or the CUSA or the AAC will make the jump to the big stage. So it's really no different than what we do with the coaching market or with any, job market out there. But I'm sure if you're a G5 coach, you're not loving having to fight the possibility that your best player is going to transfer up every season.
But it's interesting that you say that because we just did the Sun Bowl and Central Michigan was the late addition against Washington State, and they've got a quarterback, a running back, and a wide receiver, in which literally as the game is going on, the running back is sensational. The
Yes,
running back, the running back looks like Le'Veon Bell. He's amazing.
Very patient runner.
Yeah, you were looking at him and thinking to yourself, well, obviously a whole bunch of schools missed on him, and they have to be flooding him with offers right now going, come on, dude, leave the MAC. You can come play for us. I mean, honestly, I'm watching him run thinking to myself, that guy could start at Georgia.
Yeah.
And you wonder whether or not, and if they all come back, and they're all underclassmen, if they all come back, McElwain's got a really good salty team next year. And if they all leave, they're going to win 4 games.
Oh, for sure. I mean, not to mention, like, look at Akron's quarterback. The kid that just transferred to Georgia Tech, he's pretty good. The rest of those Akron quarterbacks were terrible. So there's a ton of uncertainty. And if you're a MAC school, you're not really going to know what your fate looks like in the fall, probably until that May 21st deadline, which I believe is the date that you have to declare to jump in the portal if you want to be eligible for the fall.
He's Bud Elliott, 24/7 Sports, Cover 3 Podcast, Nolecast. And Bud, we're going to get to Alabama, Georgia here in a bit. I do want to ask you one blanket question. The three of us are willing to embrace this craziness, this madness. We follow you on Twitter. We see you, people who say that, they hate this, and you, for the most part, like us, defend it. Can you play devil's advocate for a second, though? Is there a part of you who makes his living on college football that is a little concerned that this could be a little too crazy for this to sustain?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. There's no doubt that there is a level of craziness right now that I think makes everybody uncomfortable. What if you make your living on college football putting out magazines? I write for one of those magazines in the off season and do some freelance work for them. When do you want to hit publish on that thing?
Yeah. And, I mean, we all, and it's funny. And I think probably the one you're talking, I mean, Phil Steele is the Bible that we all use in this sport.
Yeah.
When does he go to publication with that?
He likes to go to print, mid-June and have the first issues out July 4th. Ish, and certainly by the end of July. And is that too soon?
I mean, it could be. I need to check when the exact. I believe that the transfer, the date to get in the portal, I believe, is the 21st. So
do you think that needs to be moved up? I mean, does that need to be
no,
April 1?
They did move it up because this year I think it was like July or something crazy because of all the weirdness of the.
Okay.
We didn't even get the ruling on the immediate eligibility until pretty late this year. I think May is an appropriate date there because of the fact that some spring games don't end until like late April, right? So you need to kind of figure out where you are on the depth chart and have your post-spring exit interviews, if you will, before you make your informed decision on the portal. What I might suggest, though, is you shouldn't just be able to, like, as long as you're in the portal by the 21st, you shouldn't be able to probably hang out all summer and then decide where you're going to play in late August. We may need to have an enrolled deadline as well, just to have some kind of roster certainty for these things, and then maybe make an exception if the head coach leaves or something like that.
But I'm just curious. My last question before the championship game: what's the vibe you're getting from people that aren't in the business? Because I play golf with a lot of guys who despise this. Every day I'm on the putting green and someone goes, this transfer thing, and I just kind of laugh at him and okay, Mr. Eastwood, go back in your cart and I'll meet you on the first tee. But it seems to be an age thing for me of complaints. What are you getting?
So for me, like I go to these recruiting camps, right, and I see these players, and so I'm like, there's no difference between these guys and the coaches, right? I mean, like what coaches have been able to have this mobility pretty much forever. And people say, well, hey, the coaches have to pay a buyout if they leave. I'm like, right. That's like a non-compete issue that they can buy themselves out of. You can't really put non-competes on people that you fight very stringently in the courts to claim are not employees. That like non-competes on non-employees is not really a winning legal formula. But I get it though, because we've had this model for so long that the NCAA pretty brilliantly, has crafted over about 60 or 70 years here since World War II to basically declare these guys as amateurs. And now that the players are waking up a little bit, it is going to rub, I think, a lot of people the wrong way. But I don't think they're going to quit watching for the most part.
You think, right, for 10 seconds, if you were commissioner of the sport, you think that it's okay that the sport is now openly, blatantly being professionalized? Like literally, we are going to be able to document how much money Texas A&M has spent this offseason to buy recruits. And
I don't think you're going to see that publicly because A&M is not the one spending the money. Their outside companies probably affiliated with boosters are. If they want to come under the payroll and start paying these guys salaries, which the schools, this is why the NCAA is fine with name, image, and likeness, because it's not really coming out of their pocket.
Bingo. And that's why I'm fired up to see between the Gator Collective with how they're doing it with the membership and how like the Texas and the Kentucky are doing. I think it's fascinating down the road, but we got to get to Monday, bud. We're running low on time. Why is Monday going to be different than the SEC championship, or is it not going to be different?
I actually think it will be different. Look, I know when you have a team that's really good on defense and a team that's really good on offense, you should bet on the offense because the defense is traditionally less predictive. Like offensive stats are more predictive. And in this case, Bama's a better offense and Georgia is a better defense. But I go back and I watch that game. Alabama broke out a lot of stuff for that game that Georgia was not ready for at the time, stuff they really hadn't showed as much in other games. Well, they've spent that bullet. Georgia has been able to practice that stuff more. They had guys, trying to jam the point and missing or guessing. And you got to think Georgia's going to rep that stuff and make Alabama play another card if it can. And the other thing was people were like, hey, they didn't get pressure on Bryce Young. The hell they didn't. They got a lot of pressure on Bryce Young. Bryce Young dodged that pressure and made a bunch of really big time throws. If you recall, after that game, we're like, oh, yeah, there's no doubt Bryce Young is the Heisman. I mean, he made a ton of really great plays in that game, in addition to some pass coverages that Georgia busted. And then Stetson Bennett, threw the pick six, which was unfortunate. I'm not saying that stuff can't happen again. I'm just saying the combination of factors for Alabama, surprising Georgia, Bennett throwing the pick six when he really had played pretty well for the most part of the year. Not great, but good enough. And then Bryce just playing by far the best game I think he's ever played relative to competition and pressure level. I think that's hard to repeat that. Alabama does not play at that Georgia level every week. They didn't play at that level last week, by the way. Cincinnati did some things that bothered them. So,
All right. It's very quickly. It's Georgia -2.5. The over-under is 52. Which play do you like better?
I actually think the over is a better play here. I think you can score a little bit on Alabama's defense. My one concern here,
Very
real quickly, center and right tackle. Who's healthy for Bama? They haven't really given an update yet.
He's Bud Elliott, 24/7 Sports, Nolecast. Well, just email him, budelliottcfb@gmail.com. Follow him on Twitter at BudElliott3. Bud, all the best to you and the family.
See you guys.
Bud Elliott joining us, Miller and Moulton.